Welcome to Unlocking Freedom in Nature and Art. It's a great day to be here today. So it's beautiful outside where I am, but most of all, I am so excited to welcome back my next guest, a friend, Dr. Upong. Welcome back. Thank you for
Thank you
being
so
here.
much. Thank you so much, Tammy. I am ecstatic and stoked that you would have me back. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
It's totally my honor. So I have the most amazing guest, and I learn so much from each of you while you're on the show. And then I, of course, follow you, and I learn so many things from your post. And I love the way you're always so positive, you're always helping others, encouraging and inspiring. So thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate that.
You are welcome. You are welcome. That's the least I could do. Thank you.
Oh, you are, of course, very welcome for that. But we have a lot more guests that follow on our show. And I want to say thank you to each person that is following today. Whether you're watching now or you'll be watching later, be sure to ask questions and we will get back to you. So I want to know where you're coming from. And in case people don't realize, you are a physician, a breast cancer survivor, best-selling author, and a health coach, which is a lot of great accomplishments. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, like Tammy said, and thank you so much, Tammy, for having me. First of all, what really my profession started as was as a physician, and I actually immigrated to the United States at the age of 30. And by the age of 40, I had my own practice and was very successful. And with the success came increase in workload, fatigue, and before you knew it, the person I was slipping away, and I looked successful on the outside. I cared for tons of patients, raising my family, serving my church, building my business, and things gradually, it wasn't overnight. I felt exhausted, disconnected, living on autopilot, and then breast cancer stopped me in my tracks. And it became my first wake-up call. Have you ever been scared? I was really scared. And that was when I was forced to really review what was going on in my life. And thank God I got healed, I got well. And being an aggressive cancer, I had to make sure that my weight came down. So I was able to release 70 pounds and keep it off. And that's why I am very passionate about helping women transform their health so that their bodies can finally reflect the success that they've worked so hard to build, so that they can feel like themselves again and enjoy the success that they've built.
And that's just so amazing. All the stuff that you've gone through. So at age 13, you came to the US.
Age of 30.
30, okay.
Yeah.
So and you came from it was
Not from
Africa,
Nigeria, from
Nigerian.
Africa.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just want to go back through this, and then you just why did you choose Tennessee?
Wow. Tennessee, well, I first came to New Jersey, and Tennessee was where I got trained and the residency, the medical profession. That's where I got trained, and it became a beautiful place for me to raise a family. It's a slower pace, beautiful environment, nice people, good schools, beautiful parks. Like where my office is, I have two parks, and this morning I went and took a walk outside. It was gorgeous. I enjoyed the sunlight. It feels like I'm being hugged, and I just love the warmth and I love the sunlight, the greenery, the birds singing, everything about Tennessee is beautiful. because it's green. And of course, with all the greenery comes allergies, a lot of allergies because we plant a lot of trees. So the different seasons, but I will still take Tennessee and the greenery, even though it comes with a little bit of inconvenience of allergies.
I love it. You know what? I need to go and visit Tennessee because I know you. I have some other friends that are. I even have clients from Tennessee,
Wow.
which is quite a ways. But they visited me here because they love our area as well here.
Wow.
Because like you said, it's the greenery, and I love the way you express how that's the sun, just as like a warm embrace.
Yes.
Because that's how I feel every time I see the sun. It's like I just feel blessed,
Mm.
especially even the winter time, when we're getting some snow or something, or if it's been cloudy or whatever. When you see that sunshine, it's like, oh, thank you. And I just crave it if I don't get it. It's like
Mm.
I can't, I'm not saying that I like a lot of heat, but I love this warm sun embrace. When it's about 80 degrees, it's perfect. So
Yes. That's my kind of weather too.
it's kind of like it felt, people were like, okay, why did you hike up to Harrison last week? Because my grandson came up and he's almost 19, and we did 3 days on the lake, 3 or 4 days on the lake, and we did several really some hard hikes up. We summited it up to the top of a mountain,
Oh, that's beautiful.
and then we also went up on top of a different one to a high lake.
Mm.
But when you go from the valleys to the mountaintop, it's like a 10-degree difference in temperature. Not saying
Yes.
that we don't start early in the morning just to make sure you don't get that heat exhaustion, but that's the nice thing about here in our area. It could be 90 below, but it's like 80 on the mountaintop.
Wow.
So, which is nice for hiking. So, but
Yes.
thank you for sharing about living there in Tennessee. I've heard so many wonderful things about it. That's the whole reason I had to ask about it. So,
And when you come, stop by Pigeon Forge, Dollywood. It's also beautiful. You see the Smoky Mountains, talking about hiking, the Smoky Mountains. Only just be careful about the bears. That's all.
I carry bear spray because we have black bears and grizzlies here in our areas
Wow.
where we hike. So,
Okay.
and you have to always use caution. You have to always, it's kind of like what we're going to be getting to here in life. You have to take precautions. And
Mm-hmm.
even my backpack, I always have bear spray. We always have a gun in case
Mm.
because sometimes bear spray isn't going to work.
Absolutely.
You always have a first aid kit. You always have plenty of water. We have extra water filters. We
Mm.
have everything survival gear in our packs in case one of us should accidentally get hurt,
Mm-hmm.
or a storm might blow in, or
Mm-hmm.
something just weird happens, or you might meet another hiker that might need that first aid.
Mm.
A lot of times people don't realize the precautions that you take. So, as we get to your story as a breast cancer survivor,
Mm.
you know, and eventually what I want to talk about after you tell us your little story about going through that is the fact that if you do these certain things, it helps to prevent
Mm.
um, cancer, or
Mm-hmm.
different problems with our bodies.
Mm. Yes. Yes.
So kind of, it's kind of like putting that backpack on, that first aid kit, but in
Mm-hmm.
a different way. If that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Makes sense. Yes.
So as a breast cancer, so what did you learn? Or let's go back to your story here. What did you learn then when you found out that you did have breast cancer? And here you're a doctor and
Mm-hmm.
you're taking care of everybody else,
Yes. Yes.
but you were
Yes.
the last person to take care
Mm.
of.
Yes. What I learned, when you look at the statistics, Over 60% of females are the caregivers, and so we are, doing at least two sets of jobs. You're doing your job and also you're taking care of your family. And then little by little, we are losing, we are skipping a meal, canceling a workout. We are saying, I'll do it tomorrow. And, you become that one person who is needed. And until we look into the mirror and say, how did I get here? Or where did I go? How did I get to this place? And so, you really want to look at it in the sense that when you have, if you have a glass of water, and you just put in food coloring one drop at a time, and nothing really changes immediately. And then after thousands of drops, the entire glass changes. And life works exactly the same way. So we spend significant amount of time caring, providing unpaid caregiving and the chronic load on us and the higher rates of burnout. And that puts the stress on our system, cortisol overload, inflammation, being the perfect storm and recipe for things like cancer, diabetes. Cancer, like weight gain predisposes. It's not like a direct causal effect, but, predisposing ourselves to the fact that we have now, canceled the little things that are in the backpack that we should put on for our trip. We are no longer eating right, exercising. We're just grabbing what we see. So those are the things that I noticed had crept into my life. So what breast cancer taught me was that, yes, I've been doing everything for everyone except doing something for myself. And to be the best caregiver, I have to care for myself because I cannot, pour out of an empty cup. So that was what I really realized that I really need to do better. And that was actually presenting a wrong picture to my patients because I'm sure they looked at me. This lady looks heavy or she's fat and she's telling me to live healthy. So that was not, reflecting who I was. And I had to go back to the core of who am I? Who do I want to be? Am I someone who's just doing one thing after the other? What identity do I want to embody? And until I stopped and I thought about that and started embodying the identity of a woman who takes care of herself, the habits came back. The habits that the backpack that I needed to shield me came back. Started prioritizing how I ate. If you look at my pantry now, I'll be very proud. I wouldn't be hiding. Oh, Tammy's coming to check my my pantry. I would open it to you. My refrigerator, no soda. It's
You'll laugh about this. A friend of mine, well, Starley, she's been on our show. She sent me a picture of her refrigerator, and I'm like, "Do you actually eat?" Because it is so perfect. It looks like a TV commercial to film it, you know. And
yeah.
my refrigerator is like full because I cook everything from scratch, so I have to have all these different ingredients, for working with. But
Mhm.
it's so funny. So I know, and I was teased you. We were talking about before the show about people's pantries. What is in your pantry? Is it healthy food? Or is it all these mixes, everything that have you read those ingredients on there, right?
Do you know what you're eating? Do you know what you're putting inside your body? And you know what? One thing I've noticed is that a lot of people know what to do, but are they doing it? That's the question. That's the conundrum. You know what to do. What's making you not do it?
They talk about it,
Yes,
but
they
don't do
do
it.
talk about it. And, I was the chief culprit. I was a physician teaching people how to lose weight, but quietly dealing with my own struggles and, standing in front of patients and talking about obesity. And they'll be wondering, why don't you look healthy, doc? I tried everything, tried juicing, extreme diets, meal replacements, working harder. Nothing lasted. Nothing lasted until chemo, came after the breast cancer, took my hair, took my lashes, even my fingerprints, and I could barely recognize myself. And, breast cancer didn't steal anything from me, but it revealed who I'd been missing on myself, who I'd been missing. Yeah. So my greatest turning point wasn't another diet, it was changing my identity. From years of asking, what should I eat? The better question became, who do I need to become? Who should I become? And one thing that women, do a lot of is we want to do more of this, do that. But we have to first of all draw back and say, who do I need to become? Because when identity is well placed, the habits and the behaviors will follow and then give you the results that you're looking for.
So I have a quick question. This would be kind of an audience question. Well, how do people know they've lost the connection with themselves? How,
Hmm.
do they? I know it's like you definitely discovered it with your breast cancer, and sometimes it's when we get really sick or something happens that we get that aha moment.
Mhm.
But is there a way that people could find that connection before or realize?
I think it's, what people need to do is to constantly do a review. First of all, recognize where are you in your journey. Recognize where you're in your journey and then ask yourself, what do I need now? And when you discover what you need now, then who do I need to be to get what I need? And then start taking one tiny step at a time, because every tiny step at a time that I'm taking, I am now building evidence for who I am. I'm building evidence for who I am. And it's a gradual process. It's not going to be overnight. It reminds me of one of the clients that I'm working with when she first came, to me, tired, frustrated, not liking to do exercise and stuff like that. You know, a lot of coaches would jump on and say, hey, you need to exercise, you need to do this, you need to do that. That person is already beat down. And wait, I don't need to beat her down, but to work on who does she need to become. And a few months later, this lady that didn't like to exercise, she told me, I've been walking 29 out of 30 days. I feel like I'm in a flow now. And I love myself for what I've accomplished. See, a lot of things happen when the identity is corrected. And then the healthy habits will follow without the struggle and the frustration. When we force things to happen, people get frustrated, they give up, it's not working, I don't like it. But when the identity is in place, it becomes, like it's just like someone painting an old building, trying to restore an old building and just paint the outside. But identity rebuilds the foundation, and a strong foundation changes everything. It now changes the habits. The habits become easier. It becomes easier. I don't have to struggle with her exercising because we have worked on the blocks, the things that are preventing her from getting that identity. And that identity doesn't come overnight. It comes by working on the blocks, the things that are the limiting beliefs, and things that are holding her back, and working with her real time, real life situation. And just like we just talked about before this meeting, is that we have opposite schedule. You have your own schedule. I have a different schedule. And everyone has to work with this, what schedule they have, their uniqueness. So what
Right.
works for you can work for me, and what works for me can work for you. We have to sit down, look at where you are, the things that work for you and the things that don't work so much work well for you as well.
Well, and when you get to those core issues, because a
Mhm.
lot of times, like you said, you're getting past depression and all these other things that are going on in this person's mind. You
Mm.
can't force anybody or tell anybody, and adding to their depression is not going to help them.
It won't.
It's kind of like if you're overweight, you know you're overweight.
Absolutely.
There's
Absolutely.
only a few people that, if you're anorexic or something, you might not know that.
Hmm.
But most people know if there's a problem deep down.
Mm.
They know those core issues um, but like you said, bringing it back to we each have different schedules and different times, but the way you're going about this with mentoring and coaching your clients tells me you're helping them to change their lifestyle because it's like becomes a lifestyle habit of eating
Mm.
healthier, exercising. And that is one of the reasons why I promote going out in nature and walking because when you're out there, you don't even think about your exercising. You don't look at your watch, the steps or the miles, like a lot of people do, but you're actually just enjoying nature, enjoying that fresh air of being out there, which not only is giving you the exercise that you need walking, but it's relieving stress.
Mm.
There's just like so many good things that come out of it.
Yes.
But and then with our schedule, it's like, yeah, I might have seems like I have a more flexible schedule, and sometimes I do, and other times I don't. But you definitely don't have the flexible schedule like I do. But we can make it work. It's the matter of putting it into a schedule.
Mm.
I
Plugging
guess is
everything in. Yes. And like you said, walking outside, the sunlight hugging you like a warm blanket, it also nurtures your soul. It nurtures your soul um, because it's not just about food on the plate, it's the food that's not on your plate, the stress it relieves, from your mind. It just opens you up to that realm where you can now step into more peace, more joy, more permission to be yourself. You're not like worrying. You don't have to think, like she said, how many steps. You're doing it without consciously doing it. So it's a beautiful place to be.
it
And I
is. Now,
love
what
that.
do you tell these people that, oh, can't I just take a pill? Have you noticed that I see that quite often? It's like they might be overweight, depressed, or whatever. They don't want to give up the habits of flipping through TV channels or doing, not doing stuff. They just
Mhm.
would rather take a pill so everything's better, so they don't have to exercise, don't have to eat right. What do you tell people?
And of course, not just the pill. Now you have the GLP-1, the Ozempic, the Mounjaro,
Right.
the Zepbound. Yes, I get a lot of people that come to me for that, and there's no judgment. And I try to figure out, where they are, what is driving that, what is making them want that for themselves. So we dig down deep, and sometimes I get to that place where they are able to allow me to help them with things that are other than medication. And sometimes they are adamant, but still work with them and still help them with healthy habits. So it's not either or. It could be this and that, or it could be that they've changed completely. So this is where you are, and this is where you want to be, and in between, which vehicle do you want to take? Do you want to use a plane? Do you want to use a bicycle, a motorcycle? So we are going in want to take them in the right direction and see where they are and gently coach them and help them see the differences and let them know that even the Ozempic, the weight loss surgery are temporary because when you stop those weight loss medicines, the weight comes back. A lot of them don't realize that. Some of them that have had the weight loss surgery, I tell them the weight comes back in 5 years if you don't start healthy habits, because the stomach re-expands and you get back to where you were again. So those are temporary measures. And so it's like, oh, it's like nobody told me that the weight will come back.
Right.
And then the insurance doesn't want to pay for those medicines because it costs like over $1,000 a month if you don't have insurance to get those medications, the shots.
Which is crazy. You know what? If you were close by, you'd be my doctor. Because what I love about you is you listen. You listen to your clients, you listen to their needs, and to help them. You know, you tell that you're honest, you tell the truth. The fact that I've had great doctors and I've had other doctors that didn't listen. And so anybody out there, if you have a doctor like Upang, then you are so blessed,
Oh,
because
thank you so
doctors that
much.
actually listen are the ones that help. And when they're looking for not, oh, here's a quick fix, here's different things that you can try, different ways, different alternatives. That is a total blessing, because you're trying to help them in so many different ways. And I hope your patients and your clients realize how blessed they are to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you really, for each person, want to uncover what is going on with them. There's a lady I have, she's very busy, and we were digging down, and I know that it sounds like this is not medicine, in coming for me for that, but I realized that the reason she wants a quick fix is that she's single. She works two jobs, she bought a house, and she's all by herself. And she wants she can't, to her, she can't afford to exercise because she has to pay her mortgages, her mortgage payments, and she's by herself. So that is the underlying thing. And if we cannot get past that, she can't see where I'm coming from. So we have to dig down to the foundation and then start installing a new identity. The other passport has expired, and we need to install a new passport that will help her see herself differently. And when people's eyes are open to what is available, then they might start listening, and that, oh, okay, maybe what I wanted is not what I really need to be doing right now. And I felt sorry for her because she's single. I'm married, I have a husband. So we have two incomes to pay for our homes, and she's by herself. So that is a concern. And I can't just zoom past that concern. And, sometimes I even go to the extent, okay, what else can you do to be able to afford this housing so that you're not so stressed out about paying for that you neglect your health?
Right. Well, and one of the things, and I've been guilty of this in the past, is you're working so many hours, so much, because you're trying to, especially as a mom and a wife, and you're
Mhm,
trying to do
mhm.
so many things. And if you volunteer doing other things as well, you find yourself doing all this, just doing, right? But you don't,
Mhm.
when you don't take time for yourself, you actually
Mhm.
slow down and you're not as protective. There's a reason why actually God told us to take a day off, right?
Absolutely.
It's to get our bodies back. We need that rest. It's kind of like last week when we hiked. We hiked on a Saturday, climbed a summit, and then Monday we only took one day off. And I turned to my grandson. I'm like, we should have taken at least 2 days off, because these are hard hikes and you can really feel it, the
Mm.
difference. And that's the way it is in life. If we don't take some appropriate time, um, we're not going to really be helping anybody. We think we're helping others, but we're not, definitely not helping ourselves.
You are so right about that, Tammy. I'm 62 years old. My life is very different. I'm 62 years old. I have a 26-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 20-month-old baby. They're all mine, okay, not grandchildren. So I had to sit down and strategize, how can I get this done? So right now, the 20-month-old is in my office. I have my office built in such a way that the baby is here because I'm not yet ready to put her in daycare. I have a caregiver that's caring for her. And then right now downstairs, seeing my patients, I have a provider doing that. So 2 or 3 days a week, I take time off. I go to the park. I do stuff like this so that it can all fit in and I can still be myself. I can still feel like myself again without losing myself in everything that I'm doing. So rest, like you said, is important. So any season of life that we find ourselves, we have to because my husband is not going to sit down and design my life because he doesn't know everything I do, all the little details, but I know the little details for myself. So I incorporate schedule in rest for myself so that I can be a better mom, a better doctor, a better wife, a better mom, whatever it is, the roles that we play, because we play so many roles. And then we get sucked in the spiral, we get sucked in. And then at the end of the day, we are less efficient because our minds is slowed down. You can't do much when you're tired. So you have to
Yeah.
be refreshed. Yes.
And I notice our attitudes sometimes we become a little bit more impatient because we're actually hurting because
Yes.
we are so tired and our bodies ache,
Yes.
and so you're not as patient. When I was a young mom, what's funny is when you're talking about the office, so was managing property. So one of the stipulations I had with the owners was that we were able to have a room for our kids there.
Wow.
And we allowed our staff to do that as well. So it was just right there. They could just walk over, hug, as long as the babies weren't interrupting, screaming, and they could do their work. I was fine with it because I think parenting is so, so important, and it's so important for moms to be there. So glad to see you're able to do that. But that helps out because you have to take, like you said, those little breaks. Because if we don't, that's when we know we're hurting. How do people um, figure out that it's time for them to take that break for themselves?
Well, you start getting irritable, snapping at the children. You're not being patient like you normally are. You're trying to do a certain assignment. You're trying to read something and you're reading it over and over again. You're spinning your wheels. That is, for me, that is a clear indication that, hey, you need a break. Or like a few days ago, last week, my daughter had to go to the airport. So I woke up like 4 a.m. to take them to the airport. And I'm not a morning person. By afternoon, I was like taking a nap. I was like, what happened to me? I said, oh, you woke up too early today. So those are telltale signs. You know yourself and you know when you feel your best. And when that best is no longer your best, you're struggling to do things, you're trying to read a passage and you're having to read it a second, a third, a fourth time, you need a rest. You need a break. Yes. So,
It's like I was just scheduling some airline tickets and I was like, there's no way I'm going at 4 a.m. because I am not that early of a morning person. I might wake up at 6 a.m., but 4
yes.
a.m., well, if the
No.
flight has to fly out at 4 or 6, I was like, no way. So I was like, no, I'd rather pay a little bit extra just so I don't have to do that. so, uh,
Exactly.
but yeah, it's life isn't easy. Life is a journey, and it's a matter of just figuring out what works for you and what doesn't work. But it's not, and as you notice, if everybody listens, it's not about being selfish at all because you're still putting everybody first, like 90% of the time, and you're taking 10% for yourself, to relax and re-energize and to get boost. One of the things that I find is because I'm self-employed is I have to go to the lake or I have to get away or go hike up a mountain because that's how I get away from stuff, even though I have a beautiful home, a beautiful landscape with ponds and it's all parked out and I have my garden And yes, it's nurturing to garden and stuff. But at the same time, for me to totally relax and do nothing, I have to get away.
Hmm. Yes. So one should look at it, ask yourself, what lights me up? What makes me feel my best? And start scheduling those into your schedule. And then also ask yourself, what drains me? What drains my energy? And start, hey, this is draining my energy. Let me do away with this, do away with that, and add more of the things that light you up. And Tammy knows that going out hiking lights her up. Then do it. My 4-year-old said, Mom, I want to go to the beach. So we are like, which beach do we go? So we started looking into that. Is one of the years we went to the Gulf Shore. So we're planning something on going to the beach. The little girl knows what lights her up. And we big girls also know what lights us up. So we need to do more of those kind of things.
We do. And some days it might just be shopping or something totally off the wall. Just call some friends or it could be your friends coming over and just hanging out. So there's
Yeah.
so many things, but be sure to schedule it. Time is flying by so fast. And I know you have such a tight schedule, and we're just so blessed that you've been able to hear. So, I have a question for the audience. When was
Okay.
the last time you truly felt like yourself?
Hmm.
We want to know. We want to hear that. And both of us will respond later on. Um, and I want to say hi, Esther. It's two. I finally saw somebody on here. Yay. A lot of times we can't see the questions and we can't tell who's on here. Don't ask me why. It's Facebook. So we want to say hi and thank you for watching. And but if you have any questions, be sure to put them on here, and either one of us will come on and answer them later. And I just want to say thank you. Was there anything else that you wanted to reflect on or mention before we leave?
Well, I just want us to know, sorry, that's the baby now crying. I just want us to know that, you do so much for everyone and you deserve to feel like yourself again. You deserve that little bit of thing that you can add to yourself to feel like yourself, because when you feel like yourself, you will be the best version and the healthiest version of yourself.
Oh, so true. And I was thinking about that. Everybody has different perspectives. We all go through things differently. And you don't know if someone is in pain or not. You don't know what that person's gone through. You don't need to be that person that goes up and says, "Oh, you need to lose weight or you need to do this." When I was younger, I looked anorexic, right? But I wasn't. I was the person eating like three. I had a really high metabolism, and I was eating like three. I could eat two hamburgers and a milkshake and fries and not gain an ounce, you
Mm,
know. But I was exercising. I was doing stuff all the time, but it was amazing how people can be mean, either way,
mm,
So I want people to realize, look at a person as a person, treat them with kindness, treat them as they're the most important person in the world. Help them
absolutely.
to feel better and inspire and encourage. And I just want to thank you so much for doing that for others.
Oh, thank you so much. My pleasure. Having been through what I went through with the cancer treatment, I don't ever want to see any woman go through that. It's
No.
horrible. You don't know if you're going to live or die. And then the treatment is so harsh because I had an aggressive tumor, so they threw everything. The chemo was hard. But thank God that I survived it. But I learned, like some of the lessons that I shared. And then let's be kind to other people. Let's not judge them by how they look, because you don't know what they've tried. You don't know that they feel guilt, they feel shame. But it's for us to encourage them so that they can also get to that place where they can now start thriving again. you know.
Right. Once they realize that you like them for who they are. It's like
Yes.
so many times, like you mentioned, I was listening to something that mentioned that like women have hormonal problems until they're 100, you know. You never know what somebody's going through, so you have no idea why they might gain weight or lose weight. We have
Mm.
no idea. But we need to keep that good attitude and inspire and encourage others. I want to thank each and every person for being here. I'm praying for those who have been on the path of tornadoes, hurricanes, fires. I understand that anxiety, that stress from fires and stuff. I've been there. So, but I want to send each of you guys a hug. I hope you have a wonderful week. And be sure to follow Dr. Ukpong. She has such positive messages and she does lives and stuff. You're going to learn so much from her. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being here. It was such an honor having you back.
Thank you so much, Tammy, for having me in your space.
So thank you and hope you guys all have a great week.